Shankly had just left Liverpool, and we knew he'd been to a few of our games. And, for me, Liverpool fan, Shankly, ultra hero. And then lo and behold, he turns up we played Gillingham away. And I remember we got the train from Lime Street about 8:30 in the morning, down to London, then out to Gillingham. We get off at the station at Gillingham, which isn't far, thankfully, from the ground, because we were dragging the skips across the streets. And, we're thinking, well, we got Bill Shankly with us, who must have been used to the best of everything at that time. None of this dragging the skips through the streets to the ground. And he was out in front. And the thing I always remember about Bill Shankly, he had the shiniest shoes I've ever seen. You could part your hair they were like a mirror, and he had chest out. He's walking through the streets of Gillingham. It was like, he was leading us on. And we hadn't won an away game that year. And, we're down the bottom. It was sticky. And I think Gillingham were a decent side in the division. And there was just something about his presence, in the dressing room. Did he say anything? Was it a general pattern type speech before we played? No, it was just his presence around the place, and the way he talked, the way he stood, everything about him. He just filled us up with something, and we won the game. And then I remember we went back, we got to Euston to get the train back to Liverpool, and we were supposed to have a meal on the train going back. But as is still typical of railways, the food carriage was closed and it wasn't going to open for anybody. And I always remember that Bill Shankly was admonishing one of the British rail staff. He said, these boys have given blood, they've given everything, they're tired out, they need some sustenance, and you have closed the food cart or the food wagon. And he said, you lot deserve to be shot with heavy bullets. I always remember he said heavy bullets, not just normal bullets, but heavy bullets. And that was one of the, my finest memories. The Shankly experience. He came to training a few times. And, I can imagine with the players that he had at Liverpool, inspiring them to, well, he was the inspiration about the whole Liverpool thing. And coming to Tranmere, helping his captain, Ron Yeats, and motivating us without saying a great deal, just from the aura of the man. So that was a memory for me, and just, the whole experience. But my path, as far as I was concerned, was going to be, finish off, hopefully survive. And ironically, my transfer actually took place the week we were due to play Aldershot away.
Well, I need to get on to that in a moment, because I've got a story that Dickie Johnson told on this podcast about that very transfer in a moment. But I just wonder if there are any other games that particularly stand out. I'm looking down the fixture list now. I mean, there'll be some that possibly stood out for the right reasons, like a 6-1 hammering of Hereford, in which you scored. There might be some that stand out for the wrong reasons. There was a 6-0 defeat at West Ham.
Well, I was injured for that one. I remember. I went down, I was studying as such, and I went down on the train, and I'd had an ankle injury. And I always remember before the game, Ron Yeats pulled me to one side, and he almost whispered in my ear. He said, "Yeah, son, just this will help you." And he gave me a little tablet. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, oh, I'm not sure I should take this. I don't know what it is. He said, no, this will help you. Heaven knows what it was. But in that particular game, it was, there was a deep chasm between the two sides. I remember I was up against Graham Padden, who used to be a good player. And he was in my sort of vicinity of the pitch more often than not. And I did quite well against him. A couple of times I took it by him, and I thought, well, I'm doing all right here. Like, we got bashed up, but we're doing all right. The Hereford game was the game where I knew for the first time I saw I had the beating of a fullback, and I almost sort of teased him that night. I knew I was quicker than him, better than him, and I wanted the ball so much because I knew I could just get by him and create stuff. And that Hereford trip as well, it just come to me now on the way to the game. One of our directors, I think, had some kind of part ownership of some kind of restaurant in Hereford. So Kingy, before the game, he said, like, we're going for a meal after the game in Hereford. He said, we'll pre-order. We're going to have steak. So he came to me and he said, what kind of steak do you want? And I didn't know there were any kinds of steaks. I thought you just had steak. So I said, what do you mean? What kind of steak? He said, well, fillet or T-bone or sirloin, what kind of steak? I said, John, I don't know. Just whatever's going, I'll have. And I always remember that was, it was an enlightening thing for me, because I'd never, ever been offered any kind of steak. And then all of a sudden, one of the games I remember, we played Farsley Celtic in the Cup, the first round of the Cup at Ellen Road. And again, that was a big thing for me, because I'd been to watch Liverpool a few times at Ellen Road. We won that game, and that was always going to be a banana skin. I think I scored as well, but it was one of those matches. I'm thinking, oh my word, what an elevation this is, playing at Ellen Road. And there were the photos of Don Revie and all that around the dressing rooms, and you thought, this is a little bit better than Crewe and Chester. The dressing rooms are more, conducive to better football. I don't know how, but they were. So, there's certain games stuck out, but it was always my overriding concern that year was not getting relegated.